Hey, how's it going? My name's Josh Burns and welcome to Josh Burns Tech. Alright, so in this video, we're going to be covering SQL joins, the inner join, left join, right join, and full outer join. You will learn everything you need to know about SQL joins, see real examples of how to use them, and you can easily follow along with me and do these joins yourself. For me personally, I definitely learn the best with hands-on exercises and experience, so that's how I've structured this tutorial for you. If you're new to my channel, I've been a SQL DBA and SQL developer for over 8 years, and I'm the highest earning SQL Server freelancer on Upwork.com, where I've earned over $670,000 and completed over 120 SQL jobs. And on this channel, I share everything with you that's worked for me. So if that's something you're interested in, then go ahead and hit the like button and also consider subscribing as well. But either way, I really hope you enjoyed this video and learn how to use SQL joins. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is set up an environment that you can easily follow along with and get real hands-on experience. So if you already have a test environment set up, then use the chapter times below to skip ahead. In this video, we are going to be using the SQL Server 2019 Developer Edition, which is completely free to download. Now I placed a link to this webpage in the description for you as well. However, you can use any recent version of SQL Server to follow along with this video. Additionally, SQL joins applies to basically any relational database management system, whether it's SQL Server, Oracle, Postgres, or MySQL. The main differentiating factors are the syntax and the management interfaces. If you need help installing SQL Server and Management Studio, then check out the video linked at the top right. This video has great step-by-step instructions. However, just make sure that you install the SQL Server 2019 Developer Edition rather than the trial version that I used in that video. Okay, now we need to create some test tables to query. And to keep this really simple, let's create a database with two tables, client and address. So let's go ahead and create the database, which is going to be named Josh Burns Tech. And if you want this script, I'm going to throw it in a blog post on my website. So check the link down below in the description of this video to go to the blog post if you want to copy out the SQL that I'm going to be executing here. Okay, the database should be created now. There it is. Let's go ahead and switch the query window to the database. So we're going to use Josh Burns Tech, go. Okay, now we're in the database context. Okay, next we're going to create some tables. So let's go ahead and create the client table. And let's create the address table. And now we're going to create a foreign key constraint to the client table using client ID. I'll show you what this looks like very shortly using a diagram that's way easier to understand. So let's go ahead and create this constraint. And now we're just going to insert a bunch of test or dummy data. You can see we're going to insert Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. We got a bunch of those in here. Let's go ahead and just insert all these. And then again, some fake addresses down here as well. All right, let's execute that. There we go, no errors. Okay, so our table should be here now. Josh Burns Tech, tables. Okay, there's the two tables, client and address. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the data in these. So in the client table, we have client ID, first name, last name, email address, and phone number. And then down below in the address table, we have address ID, client ID, address line, city, state, country, region, and postal code. And as I mentioned earlier, we created the relationship between these tables using client ID. We created a primary key to foreign key relationship. The primary key is the client ID in the client table, and the foreign key is the client ID in the address table. Now we can take a look at a visual diagram of this to make it way easier to understand as well. So we're going to go to New Database Diagram. Okay, let's separate these out a little bit. And now we can see the name of our foreign key that we created here. And if we right-click the connector and go to Properties, now over here we can get more details about the relationship. So we're going to expand Tables and Columns. And as you can see, foreign key base table is address, foreign key columns, client ID, primary key is in the client table, and then the primary key column is client ID. This connector usually doesn't align with the columns involved in the relationship. So if you want to look at it visually that way, then what we would do is just grab this one and just drag it down here. Okay, so the main thing that I want to show you here is that we're going to be using this primary key to foreign key relationship. When we start doing these join examples and connecting client to address, we're going to be using this relationship. Okay, so if you wanted to save this diagram, you can definitely do that just by right-clicking here and going to save. I don't really want to save it because they're so easy to create. You saw how fast I did that. It just took like a couple minutes. So I'm just going to leave it open. But if you wanted to save yours, you could definitely do that. The first SQL join is the inner join. Now, the reason why you join SQL tables together is to combine rows from 2 or more tables based on a related column or set of related columns between them. Most often, this is going to be a primary key to foreign key relationship. Okay, here's a very simple SQL inner join visual that I created to help you better understand it. So if you take a look here, we have the client table and the address table. And then in the middle, the intersection, we have the inner join matching rows. So everything that matches between both tables gets returned by an inner join. Now again, we use client ID to create the primary key to foreign key relationship. So the client ID in the client table has to match the client ID in the address table to be returned by the inner join. Now we're ready to write an inner join. So let's go ahead and take a look one more time. We're going to use client ID to client ID. Let's open a new query window. Make sure that we're in the Josh Burns Tech database. Let's expand the tables out here so we can see the columns. Now, something I always say for SQL Server or any relational database management system, whenever you write a select statement, it's always best to be as specific as possible. So rather than doing a select star or select everything, it's always best to actually write out the columns that you want to return. Okay, so in this case, we're going to do a select client ID. We're going to pull that from the client table. Let's go ahead and pull address ID from the address table. Next up, we want the first name from the client table, last name from the client table, email address, phone. From the address table, we want to grab address line, city, state, country, region, and last, we want to return the postal code. So by writing out the columns we want, I don't have to return the client ID from the address table. Okay, so we're going to use something called a table alias, and that's going to make it way easier to organize our select statement to see where everything's coming from. Now we want to start with the client table. So we're going to do from dbo.client, and now for the alias, we're going to give it CL. So now we're going to place CL in front of all the columns that we want returned from the client table. So we're going to do cl.clientID, cl.firstname, cl.lastname, email address, phone, and that looks good. That's all we want from the client table. So now for the inner join. So now we're going to do a return. We're going to do inner join, dbo.address. Now we're going to give the address table an alias as well. So we're going to call this one AD. Let's go ahead and add that up here to our columns. ad.addressID, ad.city, ad.state, ad.country region, and ad.postal code. And now the most important part of the inner join is the on clause. We need to specify the columns that we're going to join on. Again, primary key to foreign key relationship that we created earlier. So we're going to do on cl.clientID from the client table equal to ad.clientID from the address table. And apparently I spelled country region wrong. It definitely has an N right there. So we're selecting from dbo.client. We're doing an inner join to dbo.address on client ID. And basically what's going to happen is we're going to get all records where client ID in the client table matches the client ID in the address table. So let's go ahead and execute it. Okay, so we got 3 records returned. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Charles Hoskinson. We got all their contact details. These are again fake and not real, obviously. But we actually had 4 records total, so one of them didn't get included by the inner join. Let's find out why. Okay, let's go ahead and just do a select star from dbo.client and the select star from dbo.address. Okay, taking a look at the results, we can see that client ID 4, Kathy Wood, doesn't have a client ID in the address table. The value is null. So whenever the inner join happens, it only returns records that match in both tables for the column that you use. So client ID null does not equal client ID 4, therefore Kathy Wood is not returned. Okay, now let's add on a filter. We're gonna do and cl.client ID equals 4. Let's go ahead and just run this whole window. Okay, you can see that we got nothing back because again, the client ID doesn't match for Kathy Wood. Now let's go ahead and change this. Let's change this to, let's do our boy Elon Musk. So let's go ahead and change this to 1. Okay, so now for the inner join, we only want returned client ID equals to 1. So let's go ahead and run this. And there we go. You can see in our first select statement that we only got back client ID equals 1. So that's a really easy way that you can add a filter to a join statement if you only want returned certain data. The main thing for you to remember is that an inner join returns records that have matching values in both tables. All records that don't match for the columns you're joining on will not be included in the result set when using an inner join. Next up, we have the SQL join that you will likely use the most, the left join. Now the left join returns all records from the left table with matching records from the right table. And here's a very simple illustration of a left join using the tables that we created. So everything from the left table, the client table, is going to be returned along with matching records from the address table, which is the right table. So using our primary key to foreign key relationship again, any client ID values in the address table that don't exist in the client table will not be returned. Okay, we're going to use the same query that we did for the inner join and just change the join. So let's go ahead and come down here and do a left join, dbo.address, AD. Now this is the most important part. When you do a left join, you want to specify the left table first. So the left table is the first table that you select from. Now we're going to do a left join on the left table, which is client ID equal to the right table, which is going to be address.client ID. So again, it's really important that you specify the left table first. The left table is the first table you select from. So dbo.client, that is our left table. And we're joining to the right table, which is the second table that we join to, and that's dbo.address. Let's go ahead and run this SQL statement by itself first. Okay, so now you can see that for Kathy Wood, instead of her completely not existing in the first result set from the inner join, now we're getting the client ID for Kathy, first name, last name, email address, and phone number. So why is that the case? Let's go ahead and run this whole query window. Okay, so here's everything in the client table. As we can see, Kathy Wood has a client ID of 4 in the client table. But let's take a look at our right table. In the right table, again, she has a null value for client ID. So when doing a left join, you get everything from the left table, which is the client table. So we get that value for her. We get her first name, last name, email address, and phone number as well. But for the right table, which is address, she has a null value for client ID, which means that it doesn't return anything from the right table. The left join returns everything from the left table with matching records from the right table. We joined on client ID. The client ID is null for Kathy Wood here, so we don't get anything from the address table. Learning SQL and database management systems is all about the time and consistency that you put into it. The more you do something, the better you will get at it. I've personally taken countless SQL courses, especially when I first started. There's no telling how many I took to get that initial experience. And I believe the best investment that you can ever make in your entire life is in yourself. And with that being said, I need to take a moment to thank our sponsor for today's video, which is one of my personal favorite places to learn new skills. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. Examples of topics include freelancing and entrepreneurship, productivity, graphic design, marketing, web development, and many others. Skillshare is great for lifelong learners, which is something that I believe everyone needs to strive to be. Skillshare empowers you to accomplish real growth, as well as offers creative classes that are designed for real life and all the circumstances that come with it. Skillshare is designed specifically for learning, meaning that there are no ads and they're always adding new premium classes. Skillshare has tons of great courses for freelance skills like SQL Server. The complete SQL Server for Beginners course is one that I would personally recommend taking if you're interested in SQL Server and learning about relational databases. This course is easy to follow for beginners with over 1,800 students and tons of highly rated reviews. It has over 30 real-world exercises to help you practice and learn more about each major topic in the course. Because Skillshare is kind enough to sponsor this video and support my channel, the first 1,000 people who click my link in the description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. Thank you so much, Skillshare, for supporting the channel and sponsoring this video. The next SQL join is the right join, which returns all records from the right table with matching records from the left table. So taking a look at the right join illustration, we're going to get everything from the right table, which is the address table, and matching records from the left table, which is the client table. I know I didn't explain this earlier, but it's pretty self-explanatory. The stars represent the records that will be returned. So for the address table and matching records, that's what's returned in the right join. I just want to make that clear. And now for the right join example, we're going to use the same query again and just add a different join. Okay, so now we're going to do a right join dbo.address ad. So again, here's the most important part. We need to specify the right table first. The right table is the address table. So we're going to do on ad.clientid equal to the left table cl.clientid. So that's something that most people don't really understand the first time. Just try to remember that the first table is going to be your left table, and the second table that you join to is going to be your right table. So in the right join, we want to join on the right table, remember the illustration, dbo.address, to the left table, dbo.client. Let's go ahead and run this query. Okay, now for Kathy Wood, everything was returned that wasn't returned in the left join. The right join is basically the opposite of the left join. So using the right join, we get everything from the address table, which is our right table, and matching records from the left table, which is the client table. Nothing matched because again, the client ID does not exist in the address table, therefore there's no way to make this connection. And because we can't make the client ID connection, we get everything from the right table and nothing from the left table because nothing matched. So the only way to fix this problem, to be able to see all of Kathy's data in our query, is to come down and actually update the client ID for Kathy in the address table. So let's go ahead and write a SQL statement to do that. Okay, so we're going to update dbo.address, which is our address table, and we're going to set client ID equal to 4. Okay, here's the most important part. We have to put a where clause on here, otherwise you're going to update everyone's client ID, and we definitely don't want to do that. Okay, so what can we use in the address table? It looks like address ID is the same as client ID, and there's only one ID of 4, which is for Kathy. So let's go ahead and use that, where address ID is equal to 4. So now when we run this, we're only going to update the client ID for Kathy. Let's go ahead and hit execute. One row affected. I'm going to comment this out so I don't run it again. And the easy way to do that is just select the whole thing and then come up here and select this little option here. This comments it out. Now we can run the whole window and it's not going to execute that update statement. So let's go ahead and hit execute. And there we go. There's all the data for Kathy. Again, all we had to do is update the client ID so that it matched her client ID in the client table. That fixed our relationship and we were able to make that join and return all the data. The next SQL join is one that you will likely use the least, which is full outer join. It returns all records from both tables, whether the other table matches or not. The full outer join is essentially a combination of a left join and a right join. So taking a look at the full outer join illustration, you can see that everything's returned. Everything from the left table, the client table, everything from the right table, the address table, and everything that matches. Matched and unmatched records are returned. Okay, so in the example, before we add in the full outer join, let's first change Kathy back. So we're going to do update dbo.address. We're going to set client ID equal to null, where client ID equal to 4. We'll go ahead and run that. One row affected. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. From dbo.address. There we go. We can see that Kathy's client ID is now null. Let's go ahead and comment all this out. Okay, now let's add in the full outer join. So we're going to do from dbo.client, full outer join, dbo.address, AD for the table alias, on cl.clientID equal to ad.clientID. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. So as you can see, the full outer join returned everything, both matched and unmatched. And you can see that there's an additional record, and that's because we returned Kathy's data from the client table and the address table. They didn't match on client ID, so they weren't combined into a single record, and that's why we have 5 rows instead of 4. And let's go ahead and show that. Select star from dbo.client. Select star from dbo.address. Now we're going to run all this. Here's Kathy's record from the client table with all null values from the address table. And here's Kathy's record from the address table with all null values from the client table. And again, that's because the client ID exists in the client table, but not in the address table for Kathy. However, since we used a full outer join, we get everything for Kathy, both matched and unmatched. She doesn't have anything that matches between the client and address table on client ID, so that's why we get 2 records for her. This is why I stated that the full outer join will likely be the join that you use the least, because this could result in a massive data set if you were using a very large database with large tables. Okay, so let's update Kathy's record again. This time we're going to set it equal to 4. We need to change this back to address ID. Equal to 4. Let's go ahead and run this. Okay, now let's run the full outer join again. And there we go. You can see this time we only got 4 records because we were able to match on client ID for Kathy. Okay, to summarize everything, the inner join returns all records that match between both tables in the join. So when you join 2 tables together, whatever column or set of columns that you use to do the join, those values have to match for an inner join to return your data. For a left join, it returns all records from the left table with matching records from the right table. And then a right join returns all records from the right table with matching records from the left table. And then a full outer join returns everything, both matched and unmatched records between both tables or set of tables in the join. Okay, so think of a topic in SQL that you want to learn more about. Then go to the comment section and leave a comment with that topic. I do plan to create more SQL videos, so I want to create videos around topics that matter most to you. If you need SQL or freelance mentoring, then I highly recommend checking out my Patreon, which has tons of great benefits and a direct line of communication open with me. I get tons of requests for SQL and freelance mentoring, and Patreon has my current best offerings for those requests. You can use the link down below or go to patreon.com/JoshBurnsTech. If you haven't signed up on BlockFi yet, then go ahead and use my link down below, blockfi.com/JoshBurnsTech, to get up to $250 in free Bitcoin when you open a new account. This is one of the best ways to make your crypto work for you, generating passive income, earning compound interest while you sleep, or hit the like button because you really love SQL joins. You can also get 2 free stocks with Webull by using my link down below and making your initial deposit. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. On this end screen, I recommend checking out these videos, and be sure to hit that round subscribe button for weekly tech videos, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. Thank you for watching, and until next time.